Happy Friday, everybody. I don't know what things are like for all of you, but here in Corvallis, Oregon, I'm looking out onto 3rd Street downtown, and we've got snow accumulating in the trees and on the ground. So this just kind of happened overnight. So curious if anybody else is experiencing kind of a turn in the weather here. But kind of fun for the weekend. I don't know. We may have to go snowboarding. Might have to pile the kids in the rig and get up to the mountain. This episode is brought to you by Coke Zero. Oh, I didn't have time to get a fresh cup of coffee, so grabbed a Coke Zero from the fridge. It's kind of Brandon and I's one of our guilty pleasures that we took on when we started traveling. Actually, I have to blame my friends Josh and Jerem down in Phoenix. If you're watching this, my addiction to Coke Zero is your fault. So anyways, I've got a few things that I want to talk about today. First of all, I've had a fair bit of feedback from folks about our more recent podcast episode. I don't know if it was the last one. Yeah, I think it hit this Tuesday, and about accountability. And it's a chat. Basically, it's a chat between Brandon and I. Brandon about him holding me accountable. And it was a great episode, and it's the whole thing has been a really powerful experience for me, incredibly motivating. And so if you haven't heard that episode yet, I highly recommend it. It really talks about, and Brandon and I were talking about it again this morning, relative to one of our clients that we're working with. I just think or not one of our clients. I think all of us as owners and senior leaders, the more senior we become, the more, quote, important that our role becomes. It's very easy. And of course, it's all ego. It's mostly ego. No, it's all ego. I think it's easy for us to... It's easy for us to let our self-importance take over, for us not to feel obligated to the same expectations and standards that we're giving our team. And I don't think we're aware. I don't think we do it consciously out of ego and pride most of the time, but it can just creep in. It's like, I earned this. I earned the flexibility to not have to abide by all the rules. I'm the boss. I'm the owner. And I think most of us don't ever consciously say those kinds of things out loud, although I have heard it, and sometimes we can fall into that as well. I think more often than not, it just kind of sneaks past us. We just realize, I worked my ass off to get into the position to own a company and to build a team around myself. And it can just, that self-importance and that lack of accountability can just kind of creep in. We can kind of slide into it. And that podcast episode is an example of me doing that. And so hopefully it felt pretty embarrassing at points, but I just think, I know it's not exclusive to me. Hey, complacency. It is complacency, but at least inside me, what I noticed when I was, thanks for popping in, Eugene. I think for me, I recognize there's an element of self-importance, I have all these other important things to do. That's a small thing, right? And it's me minimizing the importance of those expectations and standards across the team. So I'm really curious to get more people's feedback on how that episode lands with them. So if you haven't checked it out, it's an accountability episode. I honestly can't even remember the name of it. It's not in front of me at the moment. But do check that out and let me know what you think. Leadership balance. So this is the other thing I want to talk about. I've mentioned Wayne a lot. He's our business manager. He's kind of like our GM at Floodlight. And I'm learning a lot from him. And he's challenging me in a variety of ways. But one of the things I noticed about his leadership style, and I think it's just inborn in him, and yet I know he cultivates it, and he thinks about these things. He cares about these things. But he's reminded me of just how important it is, if we're going to be really clear and severe and severe, I mean, is just very concrete and specific with our accountability and our expectations and everything else. And some people might describe it as being a hard ass. If we're going to be a hard ass about our standards, our expectations, which I think is what we want to be, a hard ass in the sense of being very clear, very consistent, very transparent. If we're going to do that, it's really, really important that we pair it with encouragement and affirmation when people are doing the things we're asking them to do, when people are aligning with the culture, the standards, the expectations, the leading behaviors that we're asking people to do. Like, it's so important that we manage that balance. And it's not even really a balance. It's more encouragement and affirmation than it is criticism and kind of wielding the stick, so to speak. I'm not even using probably the right terminology, the right language here for it all, but that's something that I'm just reminded of, and I've been reflecting on, is that it is very important for us to drive really clear accountability, and at the same time, there has to be this love and affirmation piece. And you've heard Brandon and I in some of our HHB podcasts talking about this. I tend in my career, I've tended to over-index on the love and the connection. And Brandon, in his come up in the career, I mean, we're both been evolving, right? But his starting point, his default behavior is to be more fiery and severe and hard ass ish. And really sort of the ultimate power as a leader, the ultimate influence is negotiating that balance between the two. And I've been experiencing that with Wayne and his leadership across our team. And it's really been inspiring me to take a fresh look at my own leadership and how do I pursue more of a balance between the love and affection and caring and understanding and the really clear expectations and consistent follow through and accountability to those things. So anyway, maybe somebody else needed to hear that just like I have, over these last few months. Wanted to draw attention to just some of the other cool things that have been happening this week. Man, we're just like here at Floodlight. It's there are so many fun things happening right now. I have this YouTube video that I saved. It's about flow, and I probably listened to it 20 or 30 times in the last couple months. And one of the things, it's almost like a meditation. It's a little bit of one of those guru positive thinking meditation things, but I've just found it really clarifying with some of the things I'm trying to lean into and work on in leadership. But one of the things it talks about is there's this flow state that comes where the challenge in front of us, the challenges we're taking on, are matched to our competency, talent, and skill. Like that's to where we're right on the edge of our current competency, our current skill, our current tradecraft, that the challenge in front of us, that we have just enough to tackle this new challenge. Like that's the perfect kind of honey spot, like honeypot to be in, is where I'm equipped with just enough of the skill and talent and interest to meet this challenge in front of me and take it on. If the challenge is far more than what I'm currently capable of, it can lead to discouragement and dismay and whatever. If the challenge is too easy, right, I'm not able to achieve that flow either. I'm not motivated enough, or I become disinterested too soon, right, to be able to pour my full self into it. So there's this balancing act of managing sort of the things that we decide to take on. And where was I going with that? I don't know where I was going with that. Oh my gosh. So anyway, I don't know why I brought that up. Took a little bit of a rabbit trail there. Yesterday's ERP video. So I did a LinkedIn Live. It was an hour long. I ended up diving a lot deeper on sales process, commercial sales, than I had intended to. I mean, I really pulled back the curtain, right? And showed a lot of how we think about commercial sales. I really hope it was helpful and some people were inspired by it. Just we spend a lot of time talking about the importance of our mindset and the way that we're approaching commercial sales. In the whole industry, all of us are trying to figure this out and figure out a pathway. Like what is the best way to approach commercial sales? How is it different than the residential and referral partner sales that most of us came up on in the industry? And so I highly recommend going back to that. I'm trying to get it downloaded so that our team can cut it up into some smaller, more bite-sized chunks. So watch for that. I hit my limit in StreamYard and I upgraded too late. I'm hoping they can help me pull that video from the cloud so we can have the creative team slice it up for everybody. But go back and check that out. You may even want to share it with your sales leaders or your sales team. Because I think ERPs approached in the right way, predicated on a pain solution selling model, an advisory selling methodology, the ERP is one of the most powerful tools we have in our industry. And just like the nutshell version of that video from yesterday is, it gives us an opportunity to do wide open discovery, to learn about our prospect, learn about their team and their business, how their business works, and learn about their past experience with disaster restoration and other vendors so that we can identify the things that they care about. We sell to those things, right? The ERP creates this hall pass, this permission slip to explore all of the contacts in the business. And so anyway, I go deep on that. Earlier this week, we had an incredible podcast with David Oberst. I'm pretty sure I'm saying that right. He is the newly minted Chief Product Officer at Verisk. And I'll be perfectly honest, I said this in the intro that Brandon and I recorded. Sometimes with these big corporate leaders, finding a vein that people can relate to, including myself, sometimes is hard. And the other thing too is sometimes, and I think it's not so much these people's personalities or them trying to be cagey or withhold things. I think just when people get to these high levels of leadership in really large companies, there is a responsibility to a degree for them to temper their words, filter what they're saying, because their words have so much influence and impact on a lot of other people. And so sometimes it can be really difficult to have an interesting interview with these kind of C-suite industry leaders. And David was a total exception to that. And in fact, most of the people we've had on Headheart&Boots, I can only think of one exception, and they weren't an industry leader. They were a New York Times bestselling author. Most of the people that we've had on from our industry have been incredibly down to earth, engaging, and relatable. But for some reason, every time we get somebody on from one of these big companies, I just I hope it's not just the same run of the mill podcast interview that they've done with, 14 other people. And it was so fun talking with David. Before we got on the podcast, he's got a passion for cars. That's his thing, right? We all have our thing. And oh my gosh, he was just, it was just fun. It was just fun talking about his passion for cars. But who knows? We may even have him on for like a lifestyle episode where we just talk about cars, because Brandon and I like cars too. But check that out. It's all about AI. We dig pretty hard on AI, and it was a great conversation. We not just about Verisk and some of the AI initiatives and stuff they have underway, and some of them are very interesting. But also just his passion for AI outside of it. There's some funny stories in there. So watch for that episode. It's probably going to be out a couple weeks, I think. We're really getting to where we're turning around our podcast episodes a lot faster. We have this video editor partner that we've been using, actually in Toronto. Anyway, he's gotten really fast at turning stuff around for us. So we're able to get our podcast episodes out a lot faster. Oh, the last thing I wanted to cover, if I don't get more questions here. All right. So any of you watching this, if you got a topic, I've got time this morning. I've got kind of a short agenda. And so if you're interested in chatting more about a particular subject, it could be sales, it could be operations, leadership, business startup, marketing, whatever you want to talk about, just throw it in the comments here and I'll try to work it into the show here. I've got until I've got another 30 minutes or so. Yesterday, I had a conversation with one of my operations managers for one of our larger companies. And boy, let me think about this because I have a lot of people that watch this. This is a very common story. It's a very common struggle. Really asking the question, when should I, how do I know when I should let this person go? Um, I think a lot of us struggle with firing people for a whole variety of reasons. Some of us struggle because of the whole relationship orientation, right? I talked about Brandon and I earlier, our default behaviors. Mine's more on the love and compassion and understanding and mercy side of things, which is good and important, but on its own, right, is problematic. Um, and then there's also HR concerns, right? Risk. How upset is this person going to be? Have I dotted all my I's and crossed all my T's? Do we have a really good, robust employee file? Have I documented things, all that kind of stuff? Sometimes that's our holdback and causing us to drag our feet. A lot of times too, it's desperation brain, right? It's like, I need this person. They're not the culture fit. They aren't the producer, or they aren't meeting the standard. They aren't following our process. There's something that they're not doing, but what they are doing is important, and we're struggling to find people like every other service company in the world right now. And so we're kind of like, we're stuck in that pro con evaluation. It's like, well, they're kind of a toxic, influence on the environment. They're constantly doing this with their people, or they're not following the process, which is starting to erode our compliance within the rest of their team, because they see, well, so and so doesn't do this, and so that's a problem. But they also do this, and we don't have anybody else lined up, and so that desperation brain oftentimes can cause us to drag our feet. Here's 3 questions that Brandon, this is really driven by Brandon. This is his thing. And I don't know where he got it. I'm sure, there's nothing new under the sun. 3 questions to ask before you fire somebody. Okay. The first question is, did I give them enough training to be successful in their role? Now, if we've created systems and processes in our business where we have a consistent onboarding process across all of our key roles across the team, sales, field technician staff, admin, JFCs, PMs, project consultants, estimators, construction project managers, all of those various roles, we have a consistent training plan and onboarding and orientation approach with all of those. It makes it a lot easier for us to answer that question. Outside of consistent systems and processes relative to training and orientation around somebody's role and job tasking and scope of work, that question can be really hard to answer. And so if you struggle with that question, it points to a broader issue of, we probably need more effective, consistent onboarding practices with our people, so that if they're not the right fit culturally, or they're underperforming to our expectations, there's some kind of standard that we can reflect against. Well, we gave them this training. They had this 45-day, training plan that we walked them through. Their direct supervisor and them signed off on it. They received the same training and focus as everybody else who comes on our team. It makes it a whole lot easier. The second question is, did I give them enough time? Did I give them enough time to assimilate that training and information? And that's going to be different for every role. And I think it's helpful to reflect on, for each of the various roles in our company, they're going to need different amounts of time to ramp up and really adopt the skill set, learn the processes and procedures, the standards, everything else. For some, like Brandon and I, have a pretty deep belief that a first-rate technician, a fully functioning technician that's responding to a loss with a helper, greeting the customer appropriately, walking through that initial rapport building, explanation of the work authorization, walking a customer through the process, creating a dry plan, doing a moisture map, doing the initial stabilization, setting equipment, all of that stuff, all of that. You should be able to train somebody up to that level of function in 45 days. And some people are like, that's impossible. And we're like, no, it's not impossible. We've done it with our clients. We've done it internally with our own businesses. And we've seen it over and over again. It absolutely can be done, but it requires a lot of intentionality and discipline. But it can be done, and it's necessary. We had a conversation with Rachel Stewart a while back, and I think it might have been a podcast. I don't recall. It was either a conversation with her and Brandon, or we brought this up on a podcast. But she was just talking about when she was at Titan, a very, very, very competitive restoration market in Phoenix. Yeah. Hey, Amber. Thanks for dropping in. A very, very competitive market. And there's just a reality that techs are going to come and go. It's just a vicious competitive market for technician talent and labor. And so you're going to have people leaving. It's just a reality. So we have to find a system. We have to develop a system and an onboarding structure to get them up to speed and get them productive as fast as possible. Because the reality is we might have them for a year. In a lot of cases, that's true. Now, can we keep them longer if we do a great job in career pathing and everything else? Yes, of course we can. Anyway, I digress. But it's an important question for us to ask and for us to think about in our business operations is, do we have a consistent kind of timeline for each of the roles of how long it should take for somebody to get up to speed, whatever that means, to meet the standard? With a salesperson, depending on their background and experience, it's going to take 3 to 6 months. Some people would say a year to really get them to be fully functioning. And the revenue numbers that companies expect is across the board. A lot of, generally speaking, my advice, like with salespeople, is we want to see them do 750 in their first full year, right? That lets us know this person has the talent and the ability and the hustle and the drive to go out and find business. And of course, we don't want them to stay there. With a lot of business models, we want that sales rep to stabilize at least 1.5 million and of course grow over time. But we can't build a business around $5 million producers. At least I haven't seen one yet with a whole team of $5 million producers in a specific market. It's possible to build that around the nation, and there are examples of that. But anyway, so what are our expectations? Did I give this person enough time to assimilate the training and the trade craft and establish their trade craft in that role? And the last question, okay, so first question is, did I give them the training needed to perform to standard at that job? Did I give them enough time to assimilate that trade craft skill, learn and understand the process, etc.? And number 3, have I given them clear and consistent feedback about their performance? And usually, or oftentimes, that's another area where we are failing, right? We tend to allow grievances and non-compliance to stack up. You guys have probably recall the term micro disappointment that I use relative to customer experience. But I think we allow the same micro disappointments to stack up with our people. We see little incongruencies, like little corners cut with our process, little things that they'll forget. And we choose not to say something because it's like, well, I don't want to be a micromanager. I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill. And so we let those little things ride. And then all of a sudden we find after a period of weeks, there's been a number of these micro disappointments that we've had in their performance, and we haven't said anything. And so now we're coming to the table with a stack of grievances, and we're likely surprising them at some level. And many of us make this mistake so severe that we allow those micro disappointments and small non-compliances to just stack up over a period of months. And we get to the point where we're pulling our hair out, and now we're talking about termination when none of those little grievances have been addressed in the moment or in real time. And so people feel embarrassed, they feel misunderstood, they feel like they're on their heels, and they start to question, holy shit, I don't know if I can figure this out. Maybe I'm in over my head, right? They lose confidence, which is not fair. It's not fair to them. This has been a really hard one for me in my career because, again, my tendency, just the way I'm wired and built, right, is to over index. My default behavior is to over index on the love. And I would be that person. It's like, I don't want to be a micromanager. I don't want to pick. I don't want to be a nitpicker. And the reality is, and this thing going back to my reflection with Wayne on our team, is it's a real disservice to people because what I've inadvertently communicated a lot in my career, in my leadership journey, is that, and of course I don't necessarily think this consciously, but this is potentially what I communicate to my people. When I hold on to those little micro disappointments, I don't communicate those small non-compliances and missteps and lack of alignment, or, hey, you didn't follow this process on this little thing. When I don't do that, because I'm afraid of coming across in a certain way, I'm really communicating, I don't think you can handle this. I think that's one of the things that's communicated is you can't handle the truth. And as I've been working with Wayne recently, that's one of the things that I've noticed is the way he does it, this balanced, hey, I'm holding you accountable to this expectation. We agreed to do this as a team and you're not doing it. I need you to do it. And then when I do it, there's affirmation and encouragement and appreciation. When you can find that balance, it's incredibly empowering to the individual that's being held accountable. It's like, hey, I need to get my shit together. I need to be the best version of myself I can be because the team needs it. And I can be more. I can meet this expectation. That's really when we're clear and severe with our accountability holding with our people, and at the same time encouraging, affirming when they meet the standard. It is incredibly motivating and inspiring. We're telling people you can do better, and I expect you to. I find this so incredibly motivating as a leader to reflect on these things. We have the power to change people's lives as leaders. We have the power to elicit things from people that they didn't know they were capable of. I was just in the gym yesterday for my WOD, and there's this guy, his name's Jason. He's a professor at the university here in town. And I really admire Jason. He's he's a real fit dude. He's probably older than me. I don't want to say how much older, but he's at least a few years older than me. Super fit, martial artist. I'm not sure what he does, but he just has really great movement. He's in really great shape certainly for his age, but just overall. I mean, he hangs like the rest of us with the 20 somethings and whatever that are students and athletes at OSU. And anyway, I like him. And he's also he's just a cool dude. Anyway, so we got paired up on bench press yesterday, and I'm bigger than him. I'm probably 50 pounds heavier than him. I should be way stronger, right? When I'm at my best. And I am. But it was fun because as we were changing out and swapping the weights, I was, without being judgmental, like he shouldn't be lifting the same weight as I am. I was kind of pushing him. I'm like, hey, dude, so what do you want? And I kept pushing myself on the weights. Actually hit a PR yesterday. And I kept pushing him, and I'm like, dude, why don't you throw the 15s on, add the 15s this time. I think you can do it. And he struggled because he was going way too slow in his reps, which is not bad. Going slow on your reps is awesome for muscle development. But if you're trying to put up some extra weight and kind of test yourself, right, those slow reps really prevent you from putting up greater weights. And so I'm like, dude, I think if you speed up your cadence a little bit, your eccentric move where you're letting the weight down, you're going super slow on those. That's why you can't put up the extra weight. I'm like, dude, I think you should try throwing some plates on and do a faster cadence. And he did. And he banged out like 6 reps when he had only done 2. He struggled on 2 the previous set. And we got done, and I'm like, dude, how'd that feel? He's like, it's great, man. He's like, I like lifting with you. It's freaking motivating. And I think it was just because of that Anyway, I don't know where I was going with that, but we have the power as leaders to help people see themselves in a way that they didn't previously see themselves. It's one of the most incredibly satisfying things. It's just so incredible. So those are the three things. Have I been honest with them, going backwards? Have I been honest with them consistently and given them feedback that they can then use to modulate their behavior? Or have I not? Have I allowed those grievances, those micro disappointments, those macro disappointments to stack up because I didn't want to be a micromanager? I couldn't be bothered to spend time on it. Whatever the excuse, right? Also, have I given them enough time to assimilate the skills, and then did I give them the proper training and onboarding and equipping that they need? So anyway, if you've answered yes to all three of those questions, fire that person for the sake of you and your team. Do it, and do it now, right? But if the answer is no to one of them, you owe it to that person to hang in the pocket a little bit longer. Now, obviously, if they're stealing or they're abusing other people or they're creating a legal risk for your company, right? That's an exception. And, punt. You might have screwed up. You need to learn from that, but you need to punt that person out, right? If they're a material risk to the company. Anyway. Okay. I think that's all I had for today. Anybody, I'm going to hang here for another minute. Anybody have another comment or topic, a question that they want me to hammer on before we're done here? This is so fun. Thank you guys. Eugene, Will, Amber, thank you for dropping the comments. It's like other people that do a lot of LinkedIn videos and stuff like this, how good it feels just to know, hey, somebody's watching. somebody's listening to this stuff. This is so, it's fun. I'm just here in my little, 12 by 12 office, staring down at the street. You kind of feel like you're alone until people pop into the comments. So anything else? I don't think so. Oh, you know what? I'm going to check. I'm going to see if anybody dropped a comment on the last one. Okay. Well, I don't think so. So I'm going to hang it up, guys. It was a short one today, but I hope it's been valuable. If it was valuable, would you please repost to your feed? It's one of the kindest things you can do, honestly. In fact, even as I say that, I need to do more of that with some of the people I follow and appreciate. Oh, hey, I see a comment. Can you speak on the importance of TPA expectations? Oh yes, I can. Oh, Amber, that's a good one. So here's what I'm going to say about TPAs. Brandon and I, early on, we worked with TPAs. We did quite a lot of TPA work for a season of time, long enough to understand the drawbacks, the pros and cons. There absolutely are pros and cons. The drawbacks are great, but I think what Brandon and I learned about TPAs and their various expectations, and holy cow, right? Us differentiating between all the various platforms, different TPA programs, and what they expect and what kind of estimating software you have to use and blah, 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 blah. There's just so much variation amongst them. Here's the attitude that Brandon and I have about TPAs. First of all, we're agnostic. We absolutely believe that it should be if you're going to do TPAs, it should be a leg of the stool. Do not over-index on TPAs, right? You don't want this outside third party having an inordinate amount of control over your business, because there is an amount of control where they can withhold and they can take away revenue. They're an intermediary, right, between you and the end customer and the carrier. And so that's fine if you choose that as a channel of revenue, but don't let it grow beyond a healthy mix. We always tell people, don't allow it to go above 25% of your revenue. And really, ideally, it's under 15%. Okay. And part of that 15% index, by the way, that reference is not just driven by what we've seen as sort of a best practice over the last several years in our own experience. But also PE companies, if you have any intention of selling your business, generally speaking, PE companies don't want to see the one exception would be commercial direct relationships, but of all the other channels, Google PPC, TPA, plumber referrals. Ideally, you don't want any one source of business representing more than 15% of your business. That's ideal. Now, very few of our businesses actually look that way, but diversification is so important. All right, so don't get too beholden to your TPA revenue. Here's the other big, I guess, mindset or philosophy that Brandon and I have developed over the years. A lot of us bitch and moan about the requirements and mandates and standards that the TPAs hold us to, the reporting documentation, And here's where Brandon and I have landed. And this is true not just of TPAs, but our most demanding, annoying customers, very high expectations. What if you flipped the script and instead of bitching and moaning about those difficult customers, what if you built your business and your processes to be able to satisfy the most demanding customers? So we not only check the box in terms of the expectations and standards that the TPAs are requiring us, but all of a sudden we level up the standard of delivery that we provide to all of our other clients in terms of how often we're updating our job notes, how often we're sending communication reports and updates to our end user, our client, the homeowner, or the commercial decision maker, right? Those of you who've listened to Brandon and I talk, and you've listened to my stuff on LinkedIn about commercial, we believe in our guts. The only long-term sustainable practice, operational practice for protecting and winning commercial business is providing 24-hour job updates. And I can't tell you how many people bristle at this, or they say they do, but they don't do it consistently. And that's just one example of, does every single commercial account require or demand 24-hour job updates? No, but the most demanding customers do. Why not build your business to be able to satisfy the most demanding customers? Why not build your systems and processes? Yeah, Amber, exactly right. Change your mindset. Flip the freaking script, right? We can bitch and moan about how hard TPAs are. And I'm not advocating for TPAs. Don't mishear me. But if you're going to do TPAs, use this as an opportunity to say, okay, where are the areas that they're really demanding? And how can I use this to build a more efficient business that's more customer focused and that creates more radical differentiated customer experience at the margins that I need to make for my business? I think if we focus our attention, our energy, our resources on answering that question, not only will we perform well, we'll get our Palm scores that get us more work, that keep us in the gravy train of the TPA work. And again, I know there's pros and cons. Look, there's pros and cons with every line of business that you choose to do. Commercial ain't a walk in the park. I think that's the mistake that a lot of people make is, those direct commercial relations. I own the relationship, a direct bill. I don't have to deal with insurance. No, come on. You're fooling yourself if you think just commercial is easy. It's just the antidote to all the TPA carrier stuff. It's not. It has its own challenges, right? So build your business and your processes and your team and your standards around the most demanding customer, and you end up differentiating yourself from the pack in a big way. So is that helpful, Amber? I kind of went off there. I don't know if I really addressed the gist of what you were asking, but that's how I feel about it. Okay, 9:44. Amber, thanks for throwing another topic in the bin there. Let's give it a pregnant pause. Anybody else? Okay, I'm gonna go finish my Coke Zero and get back into the mix. You guys have an awesome. How do I unhide that? There we go. Have an awesome weekend. Use today, by the way, I've said this before. I'm doing it this morning over my coffee. I had a long coffee this morning with my wife. Awesome, Amber. That's great. Um, I always like to use some time on Friday, whether it's like early afternoon before I'm cutting out, or this morning over my coffee, or in the morning over coffee, to just do some reflection. Reflect on what's going on inside me. What are the things that made me angry this week, frustrated me, disappointed me, discouraged me? How did I perform supporting, equipping my team? How aligned was I with the things that I say out loud to others? How aligned was I internally with my own behavior, my own commitments, my own discipline? Am I leading myself in the way that I ultimately desire for my team and my people to lead themselves? Am I pursuing the best version of myself while expecting my team to bring the best version of themselves as well? Or am I expecting great things from my team and demanding mediocrity from myself? Where is there misalignment in me? I think it's really good questions for me, for me to ask myself, and perhaps for you as well. So, have a great finish to the week. Have a nice weekend. Peace out.